What's going on? Welcome back to the deep dive with the squat series. This is episode number 3. Happy that you are here and following along. This episode is going to be all about squat form and squat variations. So let's get started. Starting off, I want you to put your feet about hip width apart. Does not mean you have to squat with this position. This is just a starting point. From here, you'll just need to do trial and error on what fits best for you, what feels good, and what allows you to squat your deepest. So you can start with your toes straight, creating a bottoms up approach of creating tension. And what this does is we're going to drive your toes in the ground. You're going to corkscrew your feet out this way without letting your feet actually move. And what you'll notice is immediately you'll feel tension in the hips here. Now, inside of your feet, you actually want to plant the inside of your feet into the ground as well, and then corkscrew out, creating a wide base for your feet for more stability. And now from here, I want to create tension in the core. So you don't want your low back and your ribs flared out like this. So you're going to tuck in the hips just a little bit, ribs pushed down like if you were in a plank position, and then you're going to get your hands out in front of you. Imagine an orange in your armpit, and you want to crush the orange, making orange juice, squeeze in that hand. And I actually want my elbow and shoulders pushing away from me, getting nice and tight in that upper back. Now from here, we are tense from the toes all the way up to the hand. Now here is the trial and error part. You're going to start with your toes straight as you squat down. Notice this is about as deep as I can get with the toes straight. Start with 10 degrees pointing out. Squat down. Oh, cool. I can squat a little bit deeper. Let's try the same angle of the feet, but I'm going to go a little bit more narrow. Doesn't feel as good. Let me angle out the toes a little bit more. Okay, this feels like my deepest squat, and I feel pretty good. I'm going to try a little wider stance, just a little bit. Okay, this is my squat stance. Now the point of me showing you that is took trial and error, playing around. That's what you need to do. Play around with your foot angle, whether it's angled out wide or narrow. Try wider stance, narrow stance. Play with what feels best for you. Now the actual form itself, you want to make sure that this stays tight, and we're going to slightly hinge at the hip, but at the same time, we're dropping our hips down to the floor, pushing our knees over the toes as you squat. And when you are squatting, when you're going down, keep those knees out wide. And I used to teach keep the knees out the entire time. But what I've noticed is I actually get a little bit more stability and strength is if I let my knees in just a little bit over the big toe. We don't want like this, but if I let my knees in just a little bit over the big toe as I squat up, I actually feel more stable coming up. So that's what I want you to do. As you are squatting down, keep those knees out, keep the corkscrew in. And then as I come up, I'm gonna bring my knees in over the big toe just a bit as I push back at the top. Now, if you are finding where you can't squat deep, something feels like it's locked up and this is as deep as you can go, you got some ankle issues, ankle mobility issues, foot stability issues. So really focus on that within your warm-ups. But this base form can apply to all the other squats. Nice and tight in the upper body, create full body tension as you squat down, coming back up, being more intentional with your exercise. First variation I want to bring up, probably already know what I'm going to say, goblet squats. Goblet squats is a great exercise, not just building strength, but it's also a great tool to teach squats. Because the weight is out in front, it pushes your center of mass a little bit, so you can actually lean back a little bit more and squat deeper, like so. So again, I'm gonna crush the orange, create that bottom up approach from the toes all the way up. And then as I squat, I can lean back a little bit more into the squat because that weight is out in front. I mean, be more upright with my chest as I squat back up. But make sure you're not doing this and then coming up. You want to push your feet into the ground and push your hips forward at the same time. Now, let's say you can't squat deep just yet. With time, consistency, you will, but let's just say you can't right now. Or you're not comfortable squatting deep just yet. And this is where a box can come in handy, especially if the box has different heights. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna be right in front of that box. I'm gonna use that as a guide to squat down, tap it, and come back up. So that lets me squat at a comfortable level without breaking form. So if you were to come down here and you have to tuck under, then you know that you're squatting too deep. So the box is really handy at allowing you to squat at a depth that you are comfortable with without pain and keeping good form. And it gives you a little bit of security. So in case you lose balance, you have something to rely on. But we're not sitting, we're just doing a little love tap and come back up. And you can use the box for any squat variation. Second squat variation I want to show you, it's called the front squat. I think the front squat is definitely underutilized by most people. Now the reason being is it's hard and it sucks. And most people don't have the prerequisite mobility to get into the position. And that's why I recommend wrist straps for front squats. Now, let me show you how. So what I'm doing with the wrist straps is I'm gonna wrap it around the bar where my hands would be at if I were to hold the bar. Nice and tight here. So now I can hold on to the strap right here when I'm in position versus getting your fingers underneath you and getting the elbow up high. Now the problem is you need wrist mobility and lat mobility to get into a good proper position where you're stable. I have nowhere near the mobility I should have to get into that position. And I know most of you don't either. And I really do not like the crossed arm method because I just do not feel stable whatsoever with that position. So you can't really push as heavy. Wrist straps kind of fills in the void of lack of mobility. I will admit, it is a crutch. Something I should probably work on is wrist mobility and lat mobility, but if you want to perform front squats, this is the best thing you can do. Now, when doing front squats, you want the bar to be about the collarbone level here. So that way you can get underneath the bar and lift up off the rack with ease. I don't like wrapping my hands around here because if I have to drop the bar for any reason, for safety, I don't want it to be stuck in my hand. So I'll just leave the straps long, put the straps where I want it, which is usually shoulder width distance here. I'm gonna get really tight here, lift up. I'm gonna place the bar right there on the collarbone, the shoulder girdle. Get really tight. Now, lift straight up, step out. Now I'm gonna create my bottom up approach like I did with the bodyweight squats. So, plant the feet, corkscrew out, and even though my arms are not in front of me, I still wanna try and squeeze the orange in my armpits, get really tight. And this variation requires you to be a little more upright than a goblet squat and a bodyweight squat. Notice when I squat down, the knee stays out, coming in just a bit over that big toe. This variation does put more emphasis into your core and the quads right here. But if you've been stuck on your back squats and kind of getting a flat toe, this will be a great variation to get strong with to help improve your back squats. This next squat variation, it's called a Zercher squat. And if you go to a commercial gym, you are not gonna see this exercise. It's a very underrated squat variation. And I don't know why, it's great. Now, is it the best muscle building exercise? Probably not. Maybe a little bit, especially if you are brand new to it. But what it does, it is fantastic with performance. whether improving overall strength, full body strength, right? Arms, upper back, core, legs, butt, mobility, great for hip mobility, and it will carry over to other squat variations. So Zercher squat, you're gonna hold the bar in the elbow crease right here. You're gonna hug it really tight to your chest. Hence why the bar is about chest, a little lower than chest level here. So, and if that knurling is uncomfortable for you, you can just wear a long sleeve so it doesn't dig into your skin as much. But you're gonna get right about shoulder width distance here, get it nice and tight, get push into the bar, and you're gonna lift up. Now with this squat variation, I'm gonna have a little bit more of a lean forward. Actually, I can squat deeper than the rack here, but notice I can squat a little bit deeper here than the front squat. Stay nice and tight here, but allows a good amount of hip mobility from the amount of core activation in this exercise. Low key, great bicep exercise because you're in that isometric hold here. You get a nice little bicep pump after this. But if you've never done the Zercher squat before, highly recommend you spend a good amount of time getting strong with this exercise. Now the squat variation you've probably been waiting for, the barbell back squat. Very similar to the front squat, we want the bar about collarbone level. For the back squat, we want to be mindful of what the back is doing and the elbows, because that's kind of where the chronic issues ends up, is either shoulders, elbows, or the low back. So I'm going to take some stress off my shoulder and elbow by keeping the thumb on the outside of the bar versus a full grip like this. So the thumb will be on the outside of the bar, so a little false grip there. I'm gonna get it right underneath the bar. Now, you could do a high bar, you can do a low bar. I like somewhere in the middle, and this is where you have to play around what feels best for you. Right there in the middle feels best for me on comfort level, shoulder, and mobility. So we'll get right there in the middle of the trap. Then I'll place my hands where it feels comfortable and the most stable. And I'm gonna get tight in my upper body before I lift up on the bar. And I'm gonna tuck in my core, and then I'm gonna lift straight up, keeping the feet somewhat close together. Little steps out. Then I'll place my feet where I want to put them for my squat. But notice how my elbows are nice and tight underneath me versus flared out behind me. I want my elbows right by my ribs. I'm gonna have a little bit of a hinge in my hips here, but I'm not arching up. I'm not pucking my butt out like a peacock. My chest is not up in the air. I'm actually tucking in my hips underneath me. Ribs are pushed down. Then as I squat, push the butt back a little bit, lower down into that squat. And then very similar to the previous squat variations, I'm gonna let my knees in just a little bit over the big toe as I push up back to my starting position. Notice I'm not letting my hips up out like this. I'm pushing my feet in the ground, pushing my hips forward at the same time. Then I'll bring my feet together, little baby steps to re-rack the weight back. Thank you so much for watching episode number 3 on squat form and different squat variations. Hopefully this helps you with your form and gives you some ideas on different squats you can do. There are way more squat variations out there. That's just a handful that you can do. Something else I want to point out that you might have noticed is I squatted barefoot with each of those variations. And there's really good reason for that. You see, modern shoes, the cushion is very spongy, and when you are squatting under load under that cushion, the feet will be constantly having to move and stabilize. It makes it very unstable. So I don't use shoes so I can have a flat, stable surface for my squats and deadlifts too, actually. So that way the feet can be planted in the ground and wide and stable versus being crammed into a foot coffin and have to work against that soft cushion surface. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time with episode number 4, some common mistakes with squats and how to fix them. See you next time.